Say a quick word of prayer. Father, which art in heaven, again, just be with me, Lord, as I present your word, Lord. I ask and pray that hearts and minds will be open and be receptive to what is being said, Lord, that we may listen to what's being said and apply these things to our life, Lord. In Jesus' name I pray. Amen. Hello, everyone. Good afternoon and happy Sabbath. Happy Sabbath? Happy Sabbath. Okay. Today we will be dealing with our health and making sure we understand why it's important in these last days. While I know some of this information will be reviewed for some of you, it's still good to get refreshers from time to time to keep this information fresh in our minds. Do we understand or know why we should be living a healthy lifestyle and taking into account what foods we are consuming? Well, today we're going to cover this topic and more. First, let's start with this quote from the Spirit of Prophecy. It says, "The controlling power of appetite will prove the ruin of thousands, when if they had conquered on this point, they would have moral power to gain the victory over every other temptation of Satan. But those who are slaves to appetite will fail in perfecting Christian character. The continual transgression of man for 6,000 years has brought sickness, pain, and death as its fruits. As we near the close of time, Satan's temptation to indulge appetite will be more powerful and more difficult to overcome." So again, that first line, the controlling power of appetite will prove the ruin of thousands, when if they had conquered on this point, they will have moral power to gain the victory over every other temptation of Satan. So if we gain the victory over our appetite, that'll be a precursor or a stepping stone or a good foundation to helping us overcome every other temptation that Satan throws our way. So again, we're going to go back to our scripture reading, Matthew chapter 4. Again, we're going to do Matthew chapter 4. We're going to read verses 1 through 4 again. Matthew chapter 4, verses 1 through 4. And it reads, "Then was Jesus led up of the Spirit into the wilderness to be tempted of the devil. And when he had fasted 40 days and 40 nights, he was afterward and hungered. And when the tempter came to him, he said, If thou be the Son of God, command that these stones be made bread. But he answered and said, It is written, Man should not live by bread alone, but by every word that proceedeth out of the mouth of God." Now we read here how Satan tempted Christ to turn the stone into bread after fasting for 40 days. It's kind of interesting that in all the sermons I have heard of Christ being tempted in the wilderness, you hardly hear any sermon preached on the first temptation that Christ faced, which was turning stone into bread. It would seem to me that if one of the main reasons for the fall of man is appetite, and then the health message is supposed to be the right arm of the gospel, I would believe there would be a greater emphasis on the health message and denial of appetite within our churches. Let's go to Proverbs 23. Proverbs 23, we're going to read verses 1 and 2. Proverbs chapter 23. We're going to read verses 1 and 2. So here's some pages turning. Proverbs chapter 23, verses 1 and 2. And it reads, "When thou sittest to eat with a ruler, consider diligently what is before thee, and put a knife to thy throat, if thou be a man given to appetite." So here we see that we're supposed to pay attention to what we're eating, and if we don't have control over our appetite, it could be our death sentence. From the book Christian, Temperance, and Bible Hygiene, it says, "The strength of the temptation to indulge appetite can be measured only by the inexpressible anguish of our Redeemer and the long fast in the wilderness. He knew that the indulgence of perverted appetite would so deaden man's perceptions that sacred things could not be discerned. Adam fell by the indulgence of appetite. Christ overcame by the denial of appetite, and our only hope of regaining Eden is through firm self-control. If the power of indulged appetite was so strong upon the race that in order to break its hold, the divine Son of God in man's behalf had to endure a fast of nearly 6 weeks, what a work is before the Christian. Yet, however great the struggle, he may overcome. By the help of the divine power which withstood the fiercest temptation that Satan could invent, he too may be entirely successful in his warfare with evil, and at last may wear the victor's crown in the kingdom of God. Every true Christian will have control of his appetites and passions. Unless he is free from the bondage of appetite, he cannot be a true obedient servant of Christ. The indulgence of appetite and passion blunts the effect of truth upon the heart. It is impossible for the spirit and power of the truth to sanctify man, soul, body, and spirit when he is controlled by sensual desires. So the question is, when we're doing our morning and our evening devotionals, are we asking God to free us from our appetite and the things we are consuming? Do we make an effort to go out of our way to make sure that we are not tempted by some of our old restaurants that has gotten us into trouble, into bad shape? So are we, if we giving up chicken, are we still driving by Church's Chicken and Popeye's Chicken and any other place to tempt us? If you're truly trying to give up that chicken and whatever that may be, you have to go out your way. Maybe you have to go 5 minutes out your way, but it's worth going 5 minutes out your way to make sure you're not being tempted to fall back into eating whatever it may be that you're trying to get over. Have we truly laid our appetite at the feet of Jesus so that we may gain control over it? When we look at the world we're living in today, I believe a healthy lifestyle and healthy eating habits will be crucial to our survival. We know in these last days, according to the Bible, that pestilence will be an issue that we will have to navigate. Pestilence is defined as a contagious or an infectious epidemic disease that was virulent and devastating. In the Bible, pestilence and plagues are interchangeable sometimes, and oftentimes famine and or war are linked with pestilence. So obviously we are in the midst of a pestilence right now with COVID-19. One day we are living our lives, and the next thing everything is turned upside down. Can't find toilet paper, can't find paper plates. So what I want to do now is deal with COVID-19, the vaccine. I'm not going to get into a debate about whether you take it or not. I just want to lay the foundation because I'm building towards something, and I'll get to it as we go along. So before we get to that, I want to read Matthew 24. I'm going to read verses 3 through 8. Matthew 24. And we're going to read verses 3 through 8. And it reads, 24, 3 to 8, and it reads, "And as he sat upon the Mount of Olives, the disciples came unto him privately, saying, Tell us when shall these things be, and what shall be the sign of thy coming, and at the end of the world? And Jesus answered and said unto them, Take heed that no man deceive you. For many shall come in my name, and saying, I am Christ, and shall deceive many. And ye shall hear of wars and rumors of wars. See that ye be not troubled. For all these things must come to pass, but the end is not yet. For nation shall rise against nation, kingdom against kingdom, and there shall be famines and pestilence and earthquakes in diverse places. All these are the beginning of sorrow." So the Bible is very clear here that pestilence and famine is here, and more will be on the way. So as we dive into the next few minutes of where I'm going with my sermon, again, this is kind of a foundation of where I'm going with this towards the end of my sermon, because there's decisions we're going to have to make as we go forward. So, Testimonies for the Church, Volume 1. I was shown that the habits of earth in the utmost confusion, war and bloodshed and privation, want, famine and pestilence were abroad in the land. My attention was then called for the scene. There seemed to be little time of peace. Once more, the inhabitants of the earth were presented before me, and again, everything was in the utmost confusion. Strife, war, and bloodshed with famine and pestilence raged everywhere. Other nations were engaged in this war and confusion. War caused famine. Want and bloodshed caused pestilence. And then man's heart failed them for fear and for looking after these things which are coming on the earth. While appearing to the children of men as a great physician, we're talking about Satan here, who can heal all their maladies, he will bring disease and disaster. Until populous cities are reduced to ruin and desolation. Even now he is at work in accidents and calamities by sea and by land, in great conflagration, in fierce tornadoes and terrific hailstorms, in tempests, floods, cyclones, tidal waves, and earthquakes. In every place and in 1,000 forms, Satan is exercising his power. He sweeps away the ripening harvest, and famine and distress follows. He imparts to the air a deadly taint, and thousands perish by the pestilence. We see that now with COVID-19. These visitations are to become more and more frequent and disastrous. Destruction will be upon both man and beast. The earth mourneth and fadeth away. The haughty people do languish. The earth also is defiled under the inhabitants thereof, because they have transgressed the laws, changed the ordinance, and broken the everlasting covenant. So we know that the COVID vaccine that was developed a couple of years ago, so we're going to go into a little details, high level. I'm not going to get into any really specific or technical details, but it's kind of high level how it works. So it says here, to trigger an immune response, many vaccines put a weakened or inactive germ into our body. So that's how the normal vaccines work. So we're talking about MMR, stuff like that, chickenpox. They do it like a deadened virus, and your body responds to that. Now with mRNA vaccines, instead, mRNA vaccines uses mRNA, which is a technology created in a laboratory, and it teaches our cells how to make a protein or even just a piece of a protein that triggers a response inside our bodies. That immune response, which produces antibody, is what protects us from getting infected if the real virus enters our bodies. Again, just stay with me. First, COVID-19 mRNA vaccines are given in the upper arm, in the muscle. The mRNA will enter the muscle cells and instruct the cell's machinery to produce a harmless piece of what is called the spike protein. The spike protein is found on the surface of the virus that causes COVID-19, and after the protein piece is made, our cells break down the mRNA technology and removes it. So basically what they're saying is, when they give you the vaccine, they give you the shot, the technology creates the spike protein on your cells. As soon as it does that, there's something in it that tells it to break down, and the body removes it. So we're talking here about now Moderna and Pfizer. When the COVID-19 pandemic began, both companies bet big on a brand new vaccine technology called mRNA. Moderna had been working on the technology for years, while Pfizer partnered with a smaller German biotechnological company, biotech, for its mRNA research. So if you remember in the news a couple of years ago, when COVID-19 broke out and they wanted to do a vaccine, Moderna was already to the point where it was already testing the coronavirus, and it was almost to the point of testing this vaccine. So Moderna was already working on this. So if you understand, COVID-19 is what's affecting us, but the coronavirus has been around for years. Coronaviruses are transmitted between animals, if y'all didn't know that. So it's been around for a long, long time. So it just happens that the coronavirus jumped into human beings, and that's how we got COVID-19. So Moderna was already working on the vaccine and the technology for this. So it was kind of on deck already when this happened. Again, just giving information, nothing more. It says, but now the observational studies have delivered results from a number of locations, Qatar, the Mayo Clinic in Minnesota, several other states in the United States, and healthcare workers and hospitalized veterans or the general population. Moderna's efficacy against severe illness in these studies range from 90 to 100%. Pfizer numbers trail by 10 to 15 percentage points. The two vaccines have diverged more sharply in their efficacies against infection. Protection from both wane over time, particularly after the arrival of the Delta variant, and I'll mention why that is in a second. But the Pfizer vaccine values fell lower. In two of the recent studies, the Moderna vaccine did better at preventing illness by more than 30 percentage points. A few studies have found that the levels of antibodies produced by Pfizer vaccine were 1/3 to 1/2 those produced by Moderna vaccine. So so my personal take on this is that Moderna was working on this. They didn't have the infrastructure to do mass production of the vaccine, so they gave it to Pfizer. And based on what you're seeing here, Moderna still works better than Pfizer, which probably means Moderna didn't dot all the I's and cross all the T's when they handed it over to Pfizer. What you're now starting to see with the Delta, especially with the Omicron, the vaccines don't work as well because the variation of the Omicron and the Delta are vastly different now than with the original COVID-19 vaccine. So that's why you start seeing some of the people, you now see more people who had the vaccine are now getting affected with Omicron because that Omicron variant is a lot different than what the vaccine was originally intended for. Just to give and there's a study that Yahoo did who in turn was quoting a CDC report where they show that the efficacies of the vaccines are kind of falling off and natural immunities are building up because the natural immunities deal more dealing with the virus itself than the specific variant of the virus. So if somebody wants that, I can give that URL and the CDC report for that. Most of the people affected with the virus experience mild to moderate respiratory illness and recover without requiring special treatment. However, some will become seriously ill and require medical attention. Older people, and this is very important here, older people and those with underlying medical conditions like cardiovascular disease, diabetes, chronic respiratory disease, or cancer are more likely to develop serious illness. Anyone who can get sick with the COVID-19, anyone can get sick with COVID-19, become seriously ill, or die at any age. So what we're starting to see now is if you have an underlying disease or maintenance, we call them maintenance conditions, right? Diabetes, health issues, heart issues, you're more likely to get more of the severe or even die from COVID-19 because your body's under stress from all the other underlying conditions that you have. So that's something to keep in mind. Coronavirus are a family of viruses that can cause illness, such as the common cold, severe acute respiratory syndrome, SARS, and Middle East respiratory syndrome, MERS. In 2019, a new coronavirus identified as the cause of a disease outbreak that originated in China. This virus is known as severe acute respiratory syndrome coronavirus, and I got all the URLs below. So these are the symptoms that you get from coronavirus, and I'm now going to explain why I did all this, what I'm doing. You got fever, cough, tiredness, shortness of breath, or difficulty breathing, muscle aches, chills, sore throat, runny nose, headache, chest pains, pink eye, nausea, vomiting, diarrhea, and rash. So those are some of the symptoms you can get from COVID-19. So when we look at, we know one of the main things about COVID-19 is more of a respiratory type disease, and it's a very acute respiratory type disease. So if you're having issues, if you already have heart issues and respiratory issues, you're in a lot of trouble when it comes to the coronavirus because this can really affect you and really cause you to have serious symptoms and to be on a respirator. So a couple of things I'm going to deal with. First, I looked this up over the internet the last couple of days. So even though the vaccine causes spike proteins on the cells, it's not considered genetic engineering because genetic engineering deals with the nucleus within the cell. If you mess with the nucleus within the cell, then they consider that genetic engineering. Take that for what it's worth. But if you cause my cells to change and do something different, to me, it's genetic engineering, right? So understanding that when this thing happened, I think everybody was scared of what's going on. So what do we do? How do we treat this? So the vaccine comes out. And like I said, I'm not for or against the vaccine. My position in the Church and Three Angels position is you take this to the Lord in prayer, and wherever the Lord instructs you, that's what you do. You don't owe nobody else any other explanation of that. You take it to the Lord, you fast, you pray, you go to the Lord earnestly in prayer, and whatever he tells you to do, that's what you do. You don't owe me, you don't owe Pastor DJ, you don't owe no officer in this church any explanation of why you did or did not take the vaccine. We need to be very clear on that because there's too much division going on in the church today over whether you took it or didn't take it. So that needs to stop, right? So now that the coronavirus has been out for 2 years, we understand that there are some natural ways of dealing with it, right? So if you don't know, I'm going to where some natural things we can do as far as our appetite, what are we eating, what things is not going to prevent you from getting COVID, but what it can do is put you in a more healthy, have your body in a more healthy state, and that way your body can fight off COVID. So just to give an example of why having underlying diseases and stuff like that, the diabetes, the high blood pressure, the heart, the cardiovascular disease, why is that important when it comes to COVID-19? In my field, where I'm in the IT field, we got a project management process called Agile. Within Agile, one of the main fundamentals actually doing a project in the Agile process is that each person in the project has his own role. That's all he does, that person does, and they don't do anything else. So if you have a team of 5 people, 2 people are doing development, that's all they do. 1 person may do testing, and 1 person may do something else. And what they found within Agile is when people, and what they do with the Agile process in a lot of projects is because they found out that when a person has to multitask, his work is not as effective as if they just concentrate on one thing, right? So if I'm multitasking over 3 different things or 4 different things, then my work is not as effective or is not as of good quality because I'm dividing. Your body works the same way. If your body is fighting off diabetes, high blood pressure, cholesterol, if your body's having to deal with all these different things, and then you drop COVID-19 on top of that, your body don't stand a chance because your body's fighting 4 different wars, war on 4 different fronts, right? So that's why it's so important that you deal with the stuff that you can deal with, right? You can deal with diabetes. There's ways to reverse diabetes. There's ways to take care of your heart disease and get better from that. High blood pressure. There's things that you can do that will clear those symptoms up. So by chance you do get COVID, then your body can then focus in on COVID instead of 3 or 4 different other things. Are we understand on that? All right, so now let's go on the other end of this. So I know a lot of people say, well, people shouldn't take the vaccine because A, B, C, and D, based on what I told you. That's understandable. But I look at it this way. What about the people who work in the healthcare industry, especially the emergency rooms? You got to understand, in emergency rooms, they run 24, maybe sometimes 36-hour shifts. Your body, and if you can go back and Deuteronomy, so when people got leprosy, they were separated from the community, so they wouldn't affect the rest of the nation because of the leprosy. Unfortunately, our healthcare workers, especially in the emergency rooms, don't have that option. They're around people 24, 36 hours at a time, and you gotta understand the people that are coming in, they're not, so if I was to get COVID, I'm in a fairly healthy state. So my body is fighting it off. I'm not as virulent or as contagious as somebody else. But if I come into the if somebody working in the emergency room, those people coming into the emergency room are highly contagious, highly virulent, and you're around those people time after time, people after people after people after people after people after people. So it's easy to say, I'm not going to take the vaccine if you're not in their position. So like I said, I'm not promoting one or other against one or the other. You take it to the Lord in prayer, but it's easy to say I'm not going to take the vaccine when I don't have to be around sick people 36 hours at a time. First of all, you're not even supposed to be up 36 hours straight. Your body drops down, it's fatigue, and then your body defenses drop down, your immune system drops down, and then you're even more susceptible to that. So something to keep in mind. It's easy to say one way or the other on this, but we got to understand where we are in this situation. So to get to my point on this is this. For the people, and this is for everybody, not just for the pro-vaccine people, just for everybody. I think the Lord allowed this to happen to open our eyes. We was fortunate this time because the company had something already on deck and ready to go. But we know that there's more pestilence coming along. What if a company's not ready to go with something the next time? What are you going to do then? Let food be thy medicine and medicine be thy food. It's contributed to Hippocrates, but if you do the study, Hippocrates really didn't say this. Somebody just attributed it to him. But what we understand is, within the Adventist Church, the health message, we know that the health message works. We know natural ways work. What you got to understand is it takes time. It's not something you can do right. It's not like, so I know a lot of people say, well, vitamin C don't work. You can't wait till you get the flu and then start taking vitamin C and then be mad because vitamin C don't work. Vitamin C is a preventable It prevents, it boosts your immune system and it prevents disease. So I mean, vitamin C is something you got to be taking all the time. It has to be part of your lifestyle. It has to be part of your diet, right? Whatever you consume. So keep that in mind. So we know that there's natural ways of dealing with COVID, but you have to start incorporating these things into your life on a daily basis. Not for 6 months, or I'm gonna do this for 3 months, and then I go back to doing what I'm doing. You can't do that. You got to do it all the time. So when we're talking about unclean animals, that's where we start, right? So if you want your body to be in a better shape than what it is, then you got to stop eating unclean foods. So we know in Leviticus, and you're going to look at the verses there, and some of the examples of unclean animals are the coney, which is a rat or rodent, the rabbit, the pig, nobody should be eating pig, swine, camel, alligator, ape, a bear, cat, cheetah, dog, donkey, elephants, fox, gecko, gibbon or a small ape, hedgehog, lion, lynx, monkey, parrots, penguin, raccoon, rat, seal, squirrel, snake, tiger, wolf, zebra, skunk, Tasmanian devil, rhinoceros, kangaroo, horse, hyena, jaguar, leopard, honey badger, hippopotamus, coyote. I want to mention all those things because I want to make sure y'all understand. I don't want y'all saying I didn't say something so then you can go and eat it. It's unclean. You shouldn't be eating it. What you got to understand is the unclean animals are scavengers on the earth. So they clean up the earth from all the other dead, other animals' waste, dead animals and stuff like that. So that's why you shouldn't be eating unclean animals. Their system is set up specifically to clean up that, and that's not. And the chemicals that these unclean animals use to break down this stuff shouldn't be in our system. So we need to understand that. Unclean fish, catfish. You shouldn't be eating no catfish. Clam, eel, lobster, scallop, shark, starfish, turtle, x-ray fish, dolphin, bullhead, European turbot, marlin, paddlefish, stickleback, squid, which is calamari. So if you see calamari on the menu, that's squid. You shouldn't be eating that. Sturgeon, including the most caviar, swordfish, abalone, crab, crayfish, mussel, prawn, oyster, shrimp, cuttlefish, jellyfish, limpet, octopus, otter, porpoise, walrus, and whale. You should not be eating none of these things. If you are, you need to stop. I'll tell you a story. So I watched, the Deadliest Catch, and they catch crab in the Atlantic, in Alaska. When they go out and catch the crab, they have 14 days from the time they catch the crab to get it to the processing plant, and then from the processing plant out to wherever restaurant they want in the world. So that's why king crab is so expensive, because literally if you get king crab at a restaurant, more than likely it was in the ocean like 14 days ago. That's how fast they move that stuff out of those processing plants and ship them across the world. What happens is every now and then a captain will try to push it, and so they can be in the tank for about 10 days, 12 days, and what happens is afterwards they'll start to die off. So what happens is when a crab dies off in the tank of the ship, it explodes. Then after the explosion, it affects the lobsters right next to it. Those lobsters explode. And then it's a chain reaction within the hull of one of these holding pens. So what happens is, if they push it too long, they call them dead loss. So they have like 3 containers on their ships. So if they push it too far, that first container, there are times where they pull it in to process and offload them, whole hole is dead. So they just take them out and dump them back in the ocean because all those crabs are dead. Those are the stuff, and why you understand that, because crabs are filtration animals of the ocean. They filter out, everything out of the ocean, including, iron and lead and stuff like that. So that's why you shouldn't be eating these things. Blue crabs. Blue crabs are among the top consumers of bottom-dwelling organism, or Beneathos. They eat bivalves, clams, mussel, oysters, small crustaceans, fresh deadly fish, plant and animal detritus, and almost anything else they can find, right? So that's blue crab. Oyster. A single oyster can filter up to 50 gallons of water a day. Sediment and nitrogen cause problems in bay areas. Though nitrogen is an essential nutrient for plants and animals, too much of it, often from fertilizer runoff and septic tanks, boosts the growth of algae, which overwhelms water bodies and ultimately reduces oxygen levels in them. Oysters, clams, and other shellfish help remove excess nitrogen from waters by incorporating them in their shells and tissues as they grow. Towns have considered seeding and growing shellfish as a way to reduce nitrogen levels in coastal waters because they are a cheaper, faster, and more sustainable alternative to building what? Sewers and wastewater treatment systems. So instead of building sewers and wastewater treatment systems, they just dumping oysters and shellfish into the ocean to clean those out. Restored oyster reefs in Harrison Creek on Maryland's eastern shore can now filter the entire volume of the creek in less than 10 days during the summer. Each year, the reefs are estimated to remove an amount of nitrogen equivalent to 20,000 bags of fertilizer, a service value at more than $1.7 million. So, I garden, so what we use sometimes in our garden is chicken poop. So if you're gonna eat oysters and lobster, you just might go get a big bowl of chicken poop, get a big spoon and go ahead and eat it, because that's essentially what you're eating. Nitrogen, fertilizer. That's what it is. It's just chicken poop or cow manure or whatever. So you just might go get a big old bowl of it, take a big eat helping of it, because that's what you're eating. We're not supposed to be eating unclean stuff. They're there for a purpose. They're there to filter out. I meant to put the picture in there, but I forgot. There's a picture online. It had a tank of a lake or a river somewhere. It was completely dirty in one tank, and then another tank to put oysters in it with the same water from that same creek, and that water was clear because the oysters had filtered out that stuff in it. Unclean birds: albatross, birdin, buzzard, condor, coots, cormorant, crane, crow, cuckoo, eagle, flamingo, grebe, grosbeak, gull, hawk, heron, kite, lapwing, loon, magpie, osprey, ostrich, owl, parrot, pelican, penguin, plower, rail, raven, roadrunner, sandpiper, seagull, stork, swallow, swift, vulture, water, hen, woodpecker. So these are the unclean birds you should not be eating. So just for reference, these are what some people consider clean birds. And I did this a while ago, so I went back through and redid things. And I had to cross out pigeon and swan. And actually swan is in the Bible as an unclean animal. And that one of those Deuteronomy chapter. But don't think you can just, because they got clean, you can eat them. If you're going to eat clean meat, you got to cook it well done. And you got to drain all the blood out. All of it. Every last little ounce of it out of it, because you're not supposed to eat the blood of an animal if you're going to do that. I'm going to give you another story. Another channel I watch called Alaska's Last Frontier. They grow cows and they butcher their meat the proper way. They drain all the blood out. And the reason they drained out the blood wasn't because they saw something in the Bible or Sister White's writing. When their father butchered a cow, he didn't drain all the blood out. He let it hang for a couple of days, and then they finished processing or whatever. So when they started to eat it, by that time flies had gotten into the animal, and they had laid eggs in the blood, in the veins of the animal. So when they started eating it, they saw this crunchy stuff, and it was actually the fly's larva. So y'all not shouldn't be eating this stuff. So even this, because they're not processing that clean stuff properly anyway. If you actually saw how they actually, first of all, they said the animals have to be perfectly calm when you kill them. They can't be excited or whatever, because their adrenaline is running through their system when you do that. So they had to be completely calm when you kill them. And then once you kill them, you got to hang them upside down, and then you got to cut out everything, drain the blood. For a full-grown cow, he collected about like 55 gallons of blood, and then he buried it. And then on top of that, when you cut out the intestines, the stomach, and all this other stuff, if you don't cut it out properly, the enzymes within the intestines and all that stuff gets on the meat, and then damages the meat. So then on top of that, so you get out, it's on the meat is damaged, and then they take out the heart and stuff, and they said if you're going to eat the heart, you got to eat it that night, and you got to cook it well done. If you do it after that, something about the bacteria gets in after that you ain't allowed to eat, you can't eat it anymore. So when they cook the heart, either they throw the heart away or they cook it. They cook it that night, and it's like well done. All their food is cooked is well done. So I'm telling y'all what's going on, because I think, he put clean stuff. We can go, no. I'm telling you right now, the proper diet, the proper way of eating in the Bible is plant-based. When you go back to Genesis and you go through all the verses, it's all plant-based. Meat eating didn't come to the scene until the flood came, and that's the only thing they could eat on the boat. And even then, if you read the Bible, two animals came on 2 by 2, that was unclean. It also says 7 by 7 clean animals came on. So that was the reason why meat eating was allowed in the Bible, because of the flood. But as a person who's contracted for the USDA, they have a site on their system of meat that's recalled every month. The stuff that gets to be like 500,000 pounds, 1 million pounds, they'll put that out on the news so everybody know about it. But on that site, it's something every week, every month. 20,000 pounds here got recalled. 30 pounds here in these 2 states got recalled. 50,000 pounds in these 3 states got recalled. They don't make the news, but they're on their site tracking what meat is being recalled, clean and unclean. So even though it's not mentioned on the news, you got to understand that they're not processing stuff properly, and a lot of disease animals are being diseased or being put into the food chain, and we're consuming these things. So the best way to not get sick or high cholesterol or heart disease is not to eat meat. So keep that in mind. So we're going to talk some of the things about, 3 things I'm going to talk about that deals with you can use when you're talking about helping yourself with disease and sickness and stuff like that. Vitamin C. First thing is going to be vitamin C. Vitamin C is also known as ascorbic acid. It's necessary for the growth, development, and repair of all body tissues. It's involved in many body functions, including the formation of collagen, absorption of iron, the proper functioning of the immune system, wound healing, and the maintenance of cartilage, bones, and teeth. Vitamin C is one of the main antioxidants that can protect against damage caused by harmful molecules called free radicals, as well as toxic chemicals and pollutants like cigarette smoke. Free radicals can build up and contribute to the development of heart conditions such as cancer, heart disease, and arthritis. Stress. A deficiency in vitamin C is associated with many stress-related diseases. It is the first nutrient to be depleted in alcoholics, smokers, and obese individuals. And because vitamin C is the most nutrient sensitive to stress, this Dr. Moed says maintaining levels of vitamin C can be an ideal marker for overall health. So if you're in a lot of stress, your vitamin C is the first thing that goes. It gets depleted. And unfortunately, your vitamin C is kind of like that foundational thing that helps your immune system. It really does boost your immune system. Colds. When it comes to the common cold, vitamin C is not a cure, but some studies show that it may prevent more serious complications. There is good evidence taking vitamin C for colds and flus can reduce the risk of developing further complications such as pneumonia, lung infections, says Moab. Stroke. Although research has been conflicting, one study in the American Journal of Clinical Nutrition found that those with the highest concentration of vitamin C in their blood were associated with 42% lower stroke risk than those with the lowest concentrations. The reason for this are not completely clear, but what is clear is that people who eat plenty of fruits and vegetables have higher blood levels of vitamin C. So you take vitamin C on a consistent basis, you lower your stroke risk. And skin aging. Vitamin C affects cells on the inside and outside the body, and its antioxidant properties can be beneficial when it comes to aging. A study published in the American Journal of Clinical Nutrition examines links between nutrient intakes and skin aging in 4,025 women ages 40 to 74. It found that higher vitamin C intakes were associated with a lower likelihood of a wrinkle appearance, dryness of skin, and a better skin aging appearance. In addition, topical treatments with vitamin C has shown in some studies to reduce wrinkles. Vitamin D, another critical thing that you will need and when you're dealing with being healthy. So vitamin D has multiple roles in the body, promoting healthy bones and teeth, supporting immune, brain, and nervous system health, regulating insulin levels, and supporting diabetes management, supporting lung function and cardiovascular health, influencing the expression of genes involved in cancer development. So we need to understand that vitamin D is not actually a vitamin, it's more of a hormone that operates in your body. So you need vitamin D. So for me, I tend to run vitamin D deficient. I always had aches in my joints and stuff like that. And then my mom was like, you should go get tested for some vitamin D. And then, I kind of shrugged her off. And I was like, I'm out in the garden 3 hours a day. I know anywhere I'm vitamin D deficient. went to the doctor, and my levels were at a 9. So if you know the bare minimum level for your vitamin D level should be 30. Most people say 40. I was at a 9. So I had to take vitamin D, like this big horse pill, a D2 for like 12 weeks. And then after that, I've been supplementing. So I started doing 10,000 IUs a day for my vitamin D. Went to do my physical and had my vitamin D level checked. And she was like, well, you can start supplementation because your values are over 100. It just says greater than 99. So I didn't stop, but I backed down to 5,000 IUs a day. Got my blood checked again this past December for my annual physical again, and my levels were down to 54. Now, mind you, 30 is extreme low. 40, most people want you at 40 and above, and I was already down to 54, and I just dropped 5,000 IUs a day. Still thinking I was still getting enough vitamin D, but I wasn't. So this shows you the importance of getting your vitamin D levels checked when you get your annual physical, because a lot of times if you get your vitamin D levels back to where they need to be, a lot of things will probably go away. What are the health effects of vitamin D deficiencies? Heart disease and high blood pressure, diabetes, infections and immune system disorders, falls in order people, some types of cancer such as colon, prostate, and breast, and multiple sclerosis. Can medication cause a vitamin D deficiency? Yes. I'm sorry, this is small. Vitamin D levels can be lowered by certain medications, laxatives, steroids, and I found this interesting, cholesterol-lowering drugs. So if you're taking drugs that are supposed to be lowering your cholesterol, you could be depleting your vitamin D. So that's something to keep in mind. Seizure control drugs, tuberculosis drug, and a weight loss drug. So these are the things, if you're taking, could lower your vitamin D, right? And this is from the Cleveland Clinic. So to make sure I think I'm getting this off some kind of weird site somewhere. That's from the Cleveland Clinic, a well-renowned clinic. Zinc, as we come to an end, almost to an end. Zinc is a nutrient found throughout your body. It helps your immune system and metabolism function. Zinc also is important to wound healing and your sense of taste and smell. So one of the issues that we have with COVID, people lose their sense of taste and smell. If you probably take some zinc with that, maybe 25 to 50 milligrams, this may improve your sense of taste and smell. And this is from the Mayo Clinic. So again, I'm not pulling anything out of left field. That's the Mayo Clinic. So you gotta know the Mayo Clinic is a highly respected medical organization. So if they're saying that, there's some truth to it. Also with zinc, an eye disease that leads to vision loss to older adults, age-related macular degeneration or AMD. Taking zinc by mouth, especially with antioxidant vitamins, may help slow vision loss and prevent age-related vision loss from becoming advanced in people at high risk. Attention deficit hyperactive disorder, ADHD. In children, taking zinc by mouth along with medicine for ADHD might help reduce certain ADHD symptoms. Well, if I'm taking zinc with that, then maybe I just do the zinc and see what else, maybe that works. Common cold, sucking on lozenges containing zinc. Glucosinate or zinc acetate helps shorten the length of a cold in adults, but it's not clear if zinc helps to prevent cold. So again, more of a prevention. Depression, taking zinc by mouth along with antidepressants seems to improve in depression. It also might help with people who don't respond to treatment with antidepressant alone. Diabetes, taking zinc by mouth might help to improve blood sugar control by small amounts in people with diabetes. And again, reduce ability to taste. Taking zinc by mouth improves the ability to taste foods in most people who have this condition. So we're starting to see again with zinc, right? So we know loss of taste and loss of smell is one of the main things that people, once they recover from COVID, they have this loss of taste and smell. Well, maybe you take some zinc with that. Maybe then that would help with your loss of taste and smell and maybe the recovery. Something to think about. All right, so these are some more links. This is from a Harvard study, and it's dealing with vitamin D and vitamin and zinc. So I'll just put it up there for y'all to look at. Because it gives some good information also on that. So the question becoming is, what are we going to do? Are we going to follow God's plan? Or are we going to follow what the world is doing, right? So when we follow the world's doing, we do this. We do stuff like this. This is let me get it right, the land, air, and by sea sandwich by McDonald's. Let me say that again, because I saw this on my Facebook page, and I thought this was a meme. I was like, this got to be a joke. I researched it. I said, oh, they real. They're serious. I had to marinate on this for like 2 or 3 days, and then I came back and I said, this got to be fake. This is real. So if you don't know, so it's called land, air, and by sea sandwich. So it's their Big Mac, their filet of fish sandwich, and their chicken sandwich. And then they combine it together. Man, listen. Y'all worried about COVID-19. Y'all should be worried about this. Because make no mistake, if you eat this sandwich, you just need to have a designated driver. Go ahead and get in the car while you eat and have that designated go and take you to the hospital. Because you might not make it eating that. I don't even know how I didn't even look at the calorie count. I just saw that and I was like, oh my goodness. But here's the crazy thing. We'll say, I'm going to take the vaccine because it's going to protect me from COVID, but then you're going to turn around and go eat something like this. Why? Because now you just defeated the purpose of, if you believe the vaccine does what it's supposed to do, this defeats the vaccine. It just defeats the purpose because it's built on you being semi-healthy, but if you're just going to go back to doing what you're doing, the Lord, like Pastor DJ said, Lord, the Lord can't bless you if you're doing stupid stuff. I'm just sorry. I couldn't believe when I saw that. I was like, but people are buying it. People are eating it. They're buying it. And I'm like, that's just a heart attack or a stroke waiting to happen. So are we going to do what the world's doing? It's McDonald's. It's a McDonald's sandwich. It's 3 sandwiches in one. So basically what happens is you go order this thing, they half assemble it. So, and then you take it to your table and then you got to assemble the rest of it. So it's so big, they don't even got a container to put it in. They just give you 2 things and to tell you to go assemble at your table. But that's a heart attack. That's a heart attack. This is why, come on, y'all. We know better. We know better. Or we're going to do what God's way is. Let's do it God's way because you eating something like that, I don't think no doctor can save you. Once that happens, I mean, that got to be more dangerous than the Widowmaker, the heart attack, but why I'm bringing this is because we really do need to take our health seriously. And like I said before, we know more pestilence are coming, and we know the best way to deal with the pestilence is to be in the best health that we can be in. So that means doing a plant-based diet, avoiding sugar, fried foods and stuff like that, right? So we want to make sure that we're in the best health possible. Not saying that you might not catch the next pestilence, but with your body being in the most healthful condition that it is, it probably can fight it off and you can still live. But if you're struggling with diabetes, you're struggling with high blood pressure, that next pestilence may come along and wipe you out. And like I said, and you got to understand that it takes time for your body to kind of do this transition to taking on more healthy stuff and using that healthy stuff in the proper way. It takes time to do that. You just can't start doing natural stuff and then think it's going to turn on the next day and you're good. It takes time. You got to be disciplined about it, right? So it needs to start now because I have no idea what's coming next. The COVID's out there. I think we can find a way to manage to live with it, but I don't know what's next coming, right? And what's coming next, you may not have a Moderna or Pfizer ready to go. They may not be like, we don't got nothing, and everybody's kind of on their own. So if you're eating healthy, if you're going on a plant-based, I hate to say diet, plant-based lifestyle, it has to be a lifestyle. If you go do that and get your body in the most healthy condition that it can be in, I think the Lord will bless you and probably protect you from whatever the next pestilence that's coming along or protect you in a way that you only get like the mild symptoms of whatever's coming along, next thing coming along. But the next thing is coming along. Count on it, right? The Bible says it. We gave you the scripture from Matthew 24, verses 3 through 8. Be prepared for what's coming. And the best way to prepare is start getting your life in order. Get healthy. Give up sugar. Give up processed foods. Give up fried food. Grow a garden. I'm always telling y'all, grow a garden. Start a garden so you can have your own food. So you can grow your own food, have the most healthiest version of the food itself. Because I know I know going to Sprouts and going to Whole Foods is expensive. But guess what? Disease is expensive too. So when Whole Foods came out, I said, what is the hype about Whole Foods? So I went into a Whole Foods store, and the fruits in the produce section, the vegetables were so vibrant and so bright. And then I said, okay, let me go to Walmart. I went to Walmart, and that food looked diseased, badly diseased. So ever since then, I always got my produce or my perishable type stuff from like a Whole Foods or Sprouts. And at the time when I did this, I didn't have a Whole Foods or Sprouts budget to do that, but I had to rearrange what I was doing so I can get the most healthiest stuff for my family. And I believe because I did that, the Lord blessed. So we have to make the decisions that, like vitamin C, everybody should be getting that tonight. Yeah, everybody getting that, and you have money for it. It just means you don't go to Whataburger or Hawaiian Brothers tonight. But you have money for vitamin C. You have money for vitamin D, and you have money for zinc. You start off with those three things, and it'll improve your immune system, and then you'll be in a better spot. Vitamin C's, you should be taking like 1,000 milligrams a day. And what the thing about vitamin C is water soluble, which means whatever your body can't take in, it'll kick out through your urine. So you don't have to worry about toxicity with vitamin C. So start off with 1,000 milligrams a day, and then go from there. This concludes my sermon. I know we're getting ready for baptism, but I want to close out with prayer as we move on to the next service. So we can just bow our heads real quick. Father, which art in heaven, thank you for allowing us to be here today. Lord, help us to take the information that was presented today as far as our health. Help us to understand the things that we're taking in our body, Lord. Help us to give us the discipline, Lord, that is needed, Lord, to come off these things, Lord, to resist these things that the devil is putting in front of us, Lord, that we may gain control over our appetite, Lord. Help us in this area, Lord. Help us to be disciplined and with your help, Lord. Also, Lord, before I close this prayer, I want to offer, if anybody, to open up the doors of the church, Lord. If anybody have heard what they heard today and want to engage in Bible study or to join the church, I'll ask at this time that you just raise your hands or come down front if you're so being moved by the Holy Spirit. Again, I'm just opening up the doors of the church and see if anybody wants to engage in Bible studies. You can contact me or contact the pastor, one of the elders in the church, and we'll make sure that we'll get in contact with you and start Bible study. So again, if you're wanting to join the church or do Bible study, just let me know. Raise your hand or come down front. Okay, if afterwards, if you feel like you want to come afterwards and speak with us in private, that is also acceptable. But again, Lord, just be with us, be with the baptism candidates as we start the next service as far as baptism, Lord. In Jesus' name I pray, amen.